What's good, YouTubers and YouTubettes? This is JB Sports back again with another one. Mr.Gary Russell Jr. versus Devin Haney. Is this Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua 2.0? When you're negotiating in the media, you're arguing, going back and forth in the media, a lot of hurt feelings transpire, and then a fight doesn't get made. And this fight here is reminding me of Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua, and that fight did not get made. Now, Team Haney says they sent a term sheet to Gary Russell Jr. to look over, him and his lawyer and Al Heyman to look over. Gary Russell Jr. is saying that on the term sheet they don't have a promoter or a network on the term sheet. So what are we agreeing to? So he's basically saying that Haney them don't have the approval of the Zone of Matchroom Boxing, who is led by Eddie Hearn. Now, Bill Haney is saying, look, you agree to the terms, and then I'll take it to the Zone, and if they approve it, cool. If they don't, we can take it to Showtime, or we can take it to Fox and see if they approve it. And that's where we're at right now. Now, this goes back to same thing they did with Wilder. Joshua and Eddie Hearn sent Wilder a contract with no date and no venue. And Wilder like, look, I agreed to the money that y'all offered me, the lowball money that y'all offered me. I think it was $15 million at the time, but we don't have a date or a venue. What's going on? And Eddie them was going back and forth, and finally they said we ran out of time. The WBA is mandating that Joshua fights Alexander Povetkin, and that fight ended up not getting made. This is kind of the same situation because both guys actually got fights lined up. People don't want to talk about this, and people want to say, oh, you're the only one I'm negotiating with. I'm trying to negotiate with you. Bottom line is, Devin Haney and them have a fight lined up with Yorkis Gamboa. They've been talking about this fight for the last 2 months. But, they've been talking about lining this fight up. And that's basically, I don't know if they're waiting on Yorkis Gamboa to agree to terms, or Yorkis Gamboa, he had a bad injury that he suffered in the Gervonta Davis fight. Maybe he's not quite 100%. Maybe they're waiting on him to get all the way healed so he can start a proper training camp to get ready for Devin Haney. I don't know if that's the case. I'm just speculating, but bottom line is both guys have fights lined up. Gary Russell Jr. has a fight lined up with Javier Fortuna. And if he wins that fight, that can set him up with a fight with Devin Haney as a mandatory, and then he ain't got to worry about no rematch clause. That's another thing I haven't heard a lot about here today. Gary Russell them asked for a rematch clause, saying if he beats Devin Haney, that the rematch will be under his conditions. He'll be able to dictate what networks showcases the fight, where the fight takes place, and all that. He'll have all the power. And we haven't heard anything from Team Haney about that demand. All you hear about them is saying, oh, just sign the contract and agree to these terms. And it's a term sheet. It's not a contract. And we'll take it back to Eddie and the Zone. Gary Russell Jr., his people saying, look, Bill, you're a middleman. You ain't calling the shots then. Have Eddie and the Zone sent over the contract, approving the fight, and I'll sign it for the $1.5 million. I already came down on the $2 million to $1.5 million. Have Eddie and the Zone sent over the contract with their approval, and I'll sign it. So that seems like that's to be the roadblock. Bill saying, oh man, you trying to say I'm a middleman, you trying to say I ain't relevant, you trying to question my credibility, my credentials, and Bill Haney's getting all of his feelings. The bottom line is, if they agree to the money, you need to take it over there to the Zone and say, look, Gary Russell Jr. have accepted the $1.5 million. We need to get out a contract to them to sign. They agreed to the term, and he wants a rematch clause stating that if he beats Devin Haney, that the rematch will be on his terms. And if the Zone agree to it, then it's time to write up the contract. The term sheet is just agreement, like Bill said, as far as just agreeing on the money. But once Gary Russell came back to you and said, look, I don't feel comfortable signing this because you guys don't have the Zone or Matchroom approval for this fight. I want you to have those guys' approval. So go back and get the guys' approval. If you can't get those guys' approval, Bill, then tell Gary, say, look, it's the Zone's got a situation going on with Canelo suing them for $280 million in damages. It's been speculated that the Zone has having all kind of money issues. People have been saying on the internet that they're going to go bankrupt, file chapter 11 or whatever, chapter 9, or whatever the chapter is you're going to file when you basically ain't got no money. They're about to file that. I don't know if that's just pure speculation or whatever the case may be. But bottom line is the Zone hasn't even come out with a fall schedule as of yet. De La Hoya been in the media saying, oh, we got only 2 fights lined up with the Zone. That's the Jaime McGill versus Turion Johnson fight, and that's the Luke Campbell versus Ryan Garcia fights. And after that, we're not doing any other fights on the zone the rest of the year. So the zone is not in a strong position right now. So you need to get their approval. You really do need to get their approval. We're reading all these headlines about the zone financial difficulties. You need to get their approval when we're dealing with a fight like this. You don't want to say, all right, just sign the contract, and then you go to the zone and they say, hey, look here, man, we got money, we got problems going on. We're in a legal battle with Canelo. We were going to focus on this, and we're basically not really going to be doing too many fights the rest of the year. We're going to do a select few fights, but we're not going to approve of this fight. And then you can go to Al Haymon and try to get Al Haymon to possibly get behind the fight, maybe put the fight on pay-per-view. I think that's what you need to do, man. But I don't blame Gary Russell Jr. for not, for signing the contract with no network on it, and no network approval, or no approval by the promoter of the fighter, Devin Haney. I can't really blame him on that, especially when you're reading these headlines about the zone financial difficulties. I would want them to be approved of this, so I can get my $1.5 million. I kind of think that $1.5 million was the money that was going to go to Devin Haney for the fight with Gamboa. They just giving the money to Gary Russell. They're going to promote the hell out the fight, and Devin Haney and Bill Haney going to get their money on the back end, which is fine, but you need to be up front with Gary Russell and his team and say, look, we're going to give you this $1.5 million. We're going to go to Eddie and try to get this approved with him in the zone, and we're going to make the money on the back end. But we're going to line all this up, and we're going to present the contract to you for you to sign, since you already verbally agreed to the $1.5 million, and we're going to give you the rematch clause on your terms. And that's how you handle your business. But you ain't answer the man on the rematch clause, and then you send him a term sheet without the zone approval and without Matchroom Boxing approval, without Eddie Hearn's approval. And you expect the man to sign. That ain't how you conduct business. That's why Al Haymon, when they looked over, they said, oh, man, this is a red flag here. Al Haymon been in the boxing game a long time, so don't act like somebody trying to question your credentials, Bill Haney. They just trying to make sure everything is on the up and up. The I's are dot and the T's are crossed. And I think that's more than fair for them to ask for that. So I look at it, and I know a lot of people saying, oh, man, Gary Russell ducking, and some people saying, oh, Devin Haney ducking. Bottom line is, I don't think either of the fighters are ducking. I think both fighters want to fight, but this is a correct way to handle business. Bill Haney, get with Eddie, get with Matchroom, get with the zone, and get the approval on the contract, or even on the term sheet. Get their approval in writing on the term sheet. Who to say they can't have their approval on the term sheet? Bill saying, well, it's not a contract, just sign the term sheet. Well, on the term sheet, have the zone and Matchroom Boxing approval on the term sheet that you sent to Gary Russell, and then he agrees to that. Then you write up the contract. You send him then you send the contract to Gary Russell and his team, and you get the rematch clause situated. Now I heard Bill was saying that they ain't worried about no rematch clause. They just talking about a straight up fight. See, that's another red flag. When Gary asked you that on the rematch clause, y'all was gonna give him the rematch clause, but now Gary's saying he wants the rematch clause under his conditions on the rematch clause. He's gonna call the shots on the rematch clause. All of a sudden now you're saying you don't want a rematch clause. So all y'all y'all need to get all that together. If it's gonna be a one fight and that's it, well, it's gonna be a one fight and it is. Bottom line, you still got to have a network that's gonna show the fight. You still got to get the approval of Devin Haney's promoter, Matchroom Boxing. You still got to do it if it's gonna be a one fight. Y'all can negotiate on a rematch clause. If ain't gonna be no rematch clause. It's gonna be a one fight, and then everybody move on. Then so be it. But Bill Haney and Devin Haney, y'all got to get y'all ducks in a row. Y'all got to get y'all promoters behind this. Al Haymon is already gave Gary Russell the go ahead. They already gave Gary Russell the green light to go ahead with this fight. You need to get the go ahead, the green light from Eddie Hearn. I know you want to say you the boss, and y'all got the youngest promoter in boxing in Devin Haney. Bottom line, if you had the youngest promoter in Devin Haney, why'd you sign with Matchroom Boxing then? You should have just been out here doing what you was doing earlier. Kept doing what you had been doing. You didn't need to sign with Eddie. Obviously, you need to sign with Eddie because you need to get on the platform to expand your brand. And now that that's the case, you need to get their approval and get their signature and get their okayness for this fight, and put it on the term sheet and send it over there to Gary Russell and his team. And y'all can negotiate the rematch clause. If it's gonna be a rematch clause, he said he wants it on his term for him to sign a contract. Now y'all saying y'all don't need a rematch clause. You need to go over that with Gary Russell and his team and see if he willing to fight you without a rematch clause. All that need to be negotiated behind closed doors and not through the media. Quit trying to make Bill's out here doing all these interviews. He wanted make sure that his son don't look like the one that's ducking. But the bottom line is you got a promoter, Bill Haney, and you need to okay that with your promoter, and then this thing can actually get done. I personally don't think it's going to get done. I think we're going to see Gary Russell, Javier Fortuna next. We're going to see Devin Haney versus Yokis Gamboa. You notice Eddie Hearn came out today saying that Devin Haney's next opponent is going to be Yokis Gamboa, Gary Russell. So he out here trying to capitalize on this fight that's getting a lot of buzz. But bottom line is Devin Haney is going to fight Gamboa next. Both of them guys win. Look for Gary Russell versus Devin Haney in the first quarter of 2021 on pay-per-view. I think that's the road that we're going down for this for these two individuals fighting next. We'll see what happens and we'll see what transpires. This is JB Sports, the man, the myth, the legend. I'll holla.